How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. This is the JR Wisdom channel. Shout out to everybody tuning in once again. Today I'm coming at you with a video in reference to soul ties. Now, this topic has been brought to my attention a few times. Subscribers and people in the comments are asking me to touch on this subject in light of recent videos that I've done in reference to attachment and people being in relationships, moving on, things like that. So first off, I just want you to know that in terms of soul ties, this is something that is spiritual in nature or spiritually connected. And if that's something that you're not interested in, this probably isn't the video for you. Just a disclaimer. So in reference to soul ties, it's completely different from soulmate, so to speak, but I do believe that there is a correlation, which I'll get into in terms of this. So in terms of soul ties, one thing that we have to know is that it can happen multiple times and with multiple people. It isn't just with one person. Okay, you can go throughout relationships and you can have an attachment, but on the spiritual side of things, I think there's a saying that the prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that when we come onto this planet, into this realm of existence, this plane of existence, we have a certain affinity for people. And with that affinity, it happens, we feel this way because of the world before this world, the realm of the souls, so to speak. And this is something that he touched on. And this could be the affinity for that soul tie, that soulmate, or you may have a dislike for certain people as well on the opposite side. So he touches on this also. So on the spiritual side of it, a soul tie is something that you may have had a relationship with someone, a very deep connection, a very deep relationship, something intimate is drawn to intimacy, or it's connected to intimacy, and the relationship may have ended for whatever reason, and both parties move on. But throughout space, time, whatever you want to call it, you tend to think about this person. You can't forget this person, even when you're being physically intimate with another, or you could be laying in your bed at night. It could come to you in your dreams. That's why they say it's so powerful and you just can't get over it. And it plays, I touched on this the other day, it plays over and over and over and over in your mind, and you just can't get this person out of your head. And it's like it's deeper than just the normal breakup, so to speak, or moving on. And that's why in my opinion, it is a strong attachment. I'm not saying that it isn't real or it isn't possible, because there are things where people share a mental or a telepathic bond where you may be thinking about someone and at that same time they're thinking about you. And I know you guys may have experienced something like this, where you may happen to call. It's that attraction, it's that frequency. You guys are on that same wavelength as well, where you happen to be thinking about each other, and you can't explain how you're drawn to this person and the role that they played. So like I said, you could have moved on and have a different boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and you're still drawn and thinking about this person. And it can't be explained. And some of it obviously is painful. It could be, you can look at it as a positive or a negative, where it's almost, if it's not an obsession, it can be borderline obsession, an obsession that you have for this person. And a lot of people go to prayer, a lot of people go to just affirming to themselves that they're better off without it, whichever way you want to go. But there's certain people who just don't want this and want to get rid of it, want to detach completely. And there's a process of doing that. There's steps, and we talk about the same steps. A lot of people research, and that's probably why you're watching this video as well. I had a subscriber ask me, can I differentiate between a man and a woman? How do they deal with it afterwards? in terms of, I guess, do you realize eventually if you're with someone else you're not supposed to be with, that the grass isn't greener on the other side? It's potentially there, but it's potentially that there's a lesson to be learned in all of this. There's something that you have to learn to evolve overall. You have to learn from this, whether a lesson, and it's for you to determine what that is. But all in all, whoever you're meant to be with in this realm, in this life, you will always find your way, or they will always find your way to you. Whoever you're meant to be with, you'll be with. And I believe that one of the Sahabas, Ali, he said that if something is meant for you, even if it's buried under a mountain, it will always make its way to you. And if something is between your teeth and you're not meant to have it, you'll never have it, if that makes any sense. So whoever is meant to be with you, you will always find your way to each other. And this is something that we must get in our mind and remember overall, because some people get so distraught and torn apart and cry and just are in complete agony because of these things. But things happen in life for a reason. Signs are for the conscious mind. Synchronicity, all of these things you encounter is something for you to be able to use your mind, third eye, whatever you want to call it, to be able to determine this is happening for a reason and there's something that I need to do about it. So for those of you who are looking at how to break the soul tie and to how to get over the soul tie and to get over these obsessive thoughts, dreaming about the person, imagining or hearing the person's voice, and you may be walking through a store or walking down the street and you can smell that person and it triggers something. Our senses are so powerful that they trigger memories. Music, watching a movie, whatever, and you just break down crying in a moment at that point. And you pray over and over, God, please remove this from me. Trust me, I've been there. And it's not, I'm laughing about it now, but it's not funny. But there are steps that you can take, and this is what you hear if you research it over and over, but I'm just going to give you my spin on it. And it's for you, just like with any problem, you recognize what the issue is. And just don't, some people just want to remain in a depressive or in a depression state or a depressed state, and they just keep playing it over and over and over. The first thing you need to do is recognize that that's actually what's going on at this point. The signs and symptoms, so to speak, all of these things, and acknowledge that this is actually a thing. This is a soul tie. This is an attachment that you want to get over, for those of you who want to get over it. And once you get that in your mind, then you have to determine basically how you want to attack it. You have to do something about it instead of just laying in bed. A lot of us want to keep talking about it with our friends over and over, even dudes, men and women. You talk about it with your friends over and over and over and over. And women, not women, women tend to speak to their girlfriends, other women, therapists, so on and so forth, and they talk about it. They talk about their problems. Not that men don't a lot of times, but men will be like everything is okay when it first happens, or the breakup or whatever first happens, and everything's really not good. And over time, if it was a true connection and a true soul tie, then that's when it starts to wear down on his mind and on his heart. And a lot of us, we tend to live in our ego with these things, especially men. Not that women don't live in their ego. Instead of eventually moving down to our heart space to realize the nature of what's actually going on. And that's the way to heal, is to go into your heart space at this point, instead of remaining in your ego. Your ego is there to serve as your protector or your guardian, to guard your heart overall. But sometimes it's certain places for the ego that they shouldn't be involved. And this is one of those cases where you need to recognize that. So a lot of whatever you have to do to get over this, whether that be to cry in a pillow, yell, scream, let it all out. You have to feel it to heal it, as they say. You have to get it all out. And this is what women tend to do that men tend to not do right off the bat. They try to, a lot of people, they go get in another relationship immediately. What they say, to get over someone, you got to get under someone, things like that. And it doesn't really help because you haven't treated the symptoms, the overall cause. Excuse me, you haven't treated the overall cause. It's still there. Instead of coming to terms with what it is at the end of the day. And on the flip side of it, for you still, if you still want to be with this person, I think Erica Badu, she did a video, or I watched something, this was a long time ago, and it was so powerful what she said. And if you're not ready to move on, you contact this person and not beg them back, but basically you contact them. No matter, you keep getting hung up on, it can be perceived as weird, whatever, until you get tired of it. You get tired of the embarrassment until it sets into your head. And this may be considered terrible advice, but it's true. And eventually you're going to evolve. You're going to evolve, is what she says. You're going to evolve to the point where you realize that it's not happening, and within yourself that I've done everything in my power to make it happen. I've tried over and over, and eventually you realize who you are in the process, and that you come to the truth of the matter, and thus you'll evolve and realize that you need to take care of yourself, so to speak, and live your truth at that point, that it may or may not happen, in my opinion. The next thing is to forgive. If that person has done anything wrong to you, first of all, you need to forgive yourself before anything else. If you've done something wrong in the situation, or if you did something that was outside of your heart space and that was in your ego, and you may have hurt yourself in the process as well as hurting them, you need to forgive yourself for whatever happened, and that realize that things happen, people change, and it's just the way it is. On the flip side of that, you need to forgive that person as well for whatever the situation. There's two people in a relationship, and realizing that that's just something, forgiveness comes with that. Then after that, the next step is just to break the tie completely. Breaking the tie, I say this overall, is a lot of us aren't mentally strong enough to be able to deal with certain things, seeing certain things, i.e., social media, pictures, any belongings that you have of this person. Some of you may even be living in the same place that you and your partner bought together, driving the same car. Everything's a trigger, everything's a reminder. You want to try and get rid of as many triggers as possible, and understand that that is the best way to alleviate yourself of these feelings, or getting to where you're better and you're able to break these ties. So that's the biggest thing. That's the last thing. A lot of people will go back and check social media, read old letters, drive by the person's house, their job, all these crazy things that people tend to do when they're love struck or have an attachment or soul tie and things like that. But look at it overall. After all of this, you're going to evolve. It's going to happen. So don't worry if you're like, well, JR, what if it doesn't happen? What if I can't get over it? You have to come to the realization that that was that point in time. That was the point in time. This experience that you had was beautiful, it was horrible, and it was a lesson to teach you something. And realize that whether it be a soul tie or a twin flame or a soulmate, a lot of times these things, that these relationships that we're in like this, are like mirrors. And it's a mirror that you hold, that's being held up to you, to show you who you are at the end of the day, even though it may be painful. These things aren't always supposed to be blissful and just the greatest thing ever. Sometimes these things are painful and they're meant to show you who you really are and how you react to things. So I hope that makes sense in that aspect. But you also must realize that we don't own anybody. You don't own anybody. This person does not belong to you. You don't belong to them. It's a tie, quote unquote, that needs to be broken, but there's no ownership in this. We're all eternal spiritual beings living a human experience. And you have to realize that. And it doesn't have to be with this person forever. So never despair over the loss of what has happened. If it was a true connection, it's going to return back. Like I stated earlier in the video, whoever is meant to be with you will always find their way to you. Whoever's meant to be with you will be with you. There's no way around that. People change every day. People change every day. You never know what's going on if you have that attachment of wanting to get back to someone. So that's what I have to say on that. In terms of how men and women react, I hope I address that as well. It's just that we all have a heart at the end of the day, and we all have soul ties, and I think it's how we react initially in terms of the breakup and how we choose to move on is what's different. Women a lot of times they deal better with their emotions and like to talk them out initially, as opposed to men. We're more stoic. We're more, man, forget her, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to find another one. And that soul tie kicks in later, sooner or later. You're just like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? And not to say that women probably do the same thing and realize that this is probably the best guy I've ever been with. Nobody can make me feel the same way. We're all human beings, and you're allowed to make mistakes in this life. So I hope this helps. I hope that I've answered your questions in terms of this. I hope that this sheds a lot of light on this subject. And if this has been beneficial to you, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Comment how you feel about the video. Subscribe. I invite you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, and check out some of my other content. I will also have some videos up here shortly that will contain more information and related to this topic as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you want any advice or any topics you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to email me. All the links are in the description below. Check out these videos. Like I said, remember, so important. Anything lost can be found again except for time wasted. Please believe that. Peace be upon you in the mercy and blessings of the Almighty, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.